Hi everybody, and thanks Giovanni for the introduction. My name is Marcos, and I'm currently working on Telefonica International Wholesale Service. We are the carrier or the wholesale division of Telefonica Group, responsible for the international networks and service. Our portfolio includes international voice, roaming service like signaling, IPX, SMS A2P and P2P and other digital service. In my current role as business development manager, I have a special focus on mobile engagement service, RCS initiative, and CPaaS solution. And regarding the question, I believe that the key is on the RCS user experience as a whole. No? But if I had to choose only one feature, I would say the interaction capabilities that allows the P2A, all of these buttons and elements through which the customer can interact with the brands.
Okay, so heavily focused on RCS. Virginie, please.
Hi, thanks Giovanni. Hello everybody, I'm Virginie Debris. I'm French, as you can hear it with my accent. I work for GMS. GMS is a global A2P and P2P messaging hub, which is also heavily involved in multi-channel messaging and fraud solutions to help the MNOs improving their revenues. I'm the head of product at GMS. GMS is particularly excited with the RCS capabilities and enablement. That's what we offer to operators, but that's what we offer as well to the enterprises. I think that I would echo what Marco said on the excitement around RCS is really all about the customer experience, the fact that you can have the entire journey within one session experience, within one browser. We all know, and marketers all know, that the moment where you break the customer journey and you request customers to go somewhere else in order to act upon that, you lose customers and you lose potentially capabilities for them to buy items and so on. And what we like in RCS is really the fact that you have all-in-one experience, and this experience is what keeps us excited, really, with all the challenges that we face, of course.
And have you spent personally more time on RCS or on wholesale?
I would say quite a lot of time on RCS, to be honest. This is kind of a complex item, as we will probably talk about. It's not only complex for the MNOs; it's complex as an ecosystem. It's complex between all of us. That's a tough item, but an exciting one. Again, I think we didn't have that many innovations in our wholesale business in the past, so this one is clearly one.
Thank you, Virginie. John.
Hi there. My name is John Puma, and I'm with Syniverse Technologies. Basically, I've been focused on product management for most all of my career, which goes beyond 20 years, as you can tell maybe by my picture. Started with RCS pretty much in the beginning when it was in the GSMA standards, back when they really hadn't even contemplated RCS A2P. It was mostly a P2P type of standard at that point. But luckily A2P has come along now, and we are aggressively, as an industry, putting out the entire ecosystem to allow for this conversational e-commerce, which I believe is a completely new paradigm that AI and bots are enabling enterprises, to step up the value chain with respect to how they engage their customers. And by using the carrier network, it makes the carrier network a more valuable asset than just the dumb pipe that we've heard about over the last few decades that we were always fearful of getting to. So very happy to be part of that. And I think if I had to summarize in one quick snappy statement about what it is that I like most about RCS, I would say it would have to be this new GUI that introduces the directory function, allowing you from the messaging application to not only reach your friends through a P2P conversation, but also to initiate a P2A conversation to perhaps your favorite enterprise or brand. So with that, I look forward to participating in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
And then over to you, Carlos.
All right. My name is Carlos Aragon. I'm a Spaniard transplanted to Texas, which is where Mavenir is headquartered. And I run the marketing department for Mavenir Enterprise Solutions, which includes RCS business messaging. And within my team, I'm actually the one most involved with RCS business messaging. I've been evangelizing this for years. Many of you may have seen me in the GSMA events, recently in the WAS event in Valencia last year for wholesale. But yes, I mean, most of my effort has been around RCS versus wholesale. And as John just mentioned, a lot of that evangelization is to try and move the discussion from the traditional A2P, where the brands reach the users and have to limit themselves to a list of contacts they have already acquired, to the P2A model, where we make the mechanisms available for the brands to be discovered by the users in multiple ways. So I'm also very excited to be part of this panel, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have very exciting discussions.
Fantastic. So clearly we have a big depth of RCS knowledge, but also background in wholesale, perfect DNA for this panel. So let's get started. Wholesale is obviously not only about messaging, but we also have many voice and data wholesale experts in our audience today. But even they who are not talking messaging all the time like us, I'm sure they might have heard about the buzzword of RCS by now. It's popping up in all conferences, literally, for the last years. So Marcos, how much is RCS only buzz, or how much of it is real? Can you report on, as an operator, on any RCS business messaging, or RBM, as we say, use cases that go beyond a proof of concept with a few single participants in your network?
Yes, we believe that we believe and we hope that this is real. No, we have been developing different trials and use cases during this year, both in Latin and European markets. We started with simple telco use cases to learn and to get information about the behavior of this channel. No, to view the KPIs and to gather all of this information needed to present the result to the enterprises and try to push them to use the channel. No? So talking about real experience, we started in April of this year. We launched a campaign in Brazil for COVID. No, it was a very simple campaign based on a welcome message and a carousel with information and recommendation about the pandemic. No, our result in this case were more than 4 million messages sent. No, with a success delivery rate higher than 94%, and a read rate of 36%. No. After this, one month later, more or less, we launched other campaign in Latin, but in this case, we increased the complexity. You know? We introduced more options, other kind of triggers, the possibility to acquire service in the channel, and so on. No? On this case, we use the Mother Day, you know, in order to promote different accessories and different devices to our user base, no, in Brazil. We segment the user base in prepaid, postpaid, and control, and we send 2 million messages in this case to different segments. No, in parallel, we launch an SMS E2P campaign to do a A/B test, no, and we got amazing results, no, in this experience. No, the message read rate was 50%. But in this case, we got 94% of this message were read within the first hour. No? This shows the impact and the importance of this channel. No? For example, we can say that the click-through rate in this campaign was 10% higher than the SMS campaign. No? So we are very, very happy, and we believe that these numbers allow us to grow on RCS, and it's only a matter of time, for the RCS adaptation. Now, as I mentioned before, we are working with big brands and our MNOs to launch campaigns to a whole country. During the following months, we hope to launch, I believe in November, more or less, a campaign covering all the MNOs in the same country. It's a key milestone for us because we believe that the full coverage is essential for the brands.
So a campaign with 4 million messages is clearly a real campaign. It's not just a proof of concept. So that is very encouraging. Thank you, Marcos. So Virginie, you've been dealing with SMS for a long time. Is RCS now replacing SMS, and is RCS SMS 2.0? What is your view on that?
I'm not sure how I should take your long time, but anyway, thank you.
Lots of experience.
I'm just teasing you there. So no, I follow you. To us, really, at GMS, we consider RCS, and don't get this wrong, but we consider RCS just one new channel, one additional channel to reach the end user. And then that's also an interesting matter for us when it comes to what Marcos just said on the fact that the full coverage is important for the brand. I agree, it's a plus, because clearly you will not be able to provide the same rich content via SMS that you have with RCS. But I think the fact that there are a few things there. At first, between SMS and RCS, there were already a lot of other channels being used by enterprises. Push was one, multiple OTTs. We talked about Viber, we talked about WhatsApp, Facebook. These are important channels for the enterprises. And we can see today that it would be too limitative for a brand to limit it to SMS or RCS. There are multiple other ways, of course, for them to reach their end users. And usually that's really what matters for us, and what we see. What matters is really the end user must be reached the way which is the best, which he considered as being the best for himself. And what is also interesting then for the brand, and to respond then to your specific question on, is it SMS 2.0? We don't believe it's truly that, because if you try to transfer the classical SMS capability, which is pushing information towards the end user, a pure A2P push, simple message towards RCS, it's really a very limited usage of RCS. In reality, what you want with RCS is to do much more than that. What you want with RCS is totally change the way you interact with your end users. And it's much more, again, it's much more interaction, it's much more two ways. John mentioned this P2A, this discovery, and we think also that's one of the key elements. But that also means that the entire scenario of the customer interaction through that channel has to evolve. And we've seen already that brands did evolve and did change a little bit the way they interact with the end users, thanks to the OTTs. When we use the chatbots already for Viber, for WhatsApp, there is already that kind of interaction, which is also created by RCS. So we believe RCS is much more than SMS 2.0, but that also means that if we try to replace simply SMS by RCS, it's a little bit too simple, I would say. We have to go one step further, if I may.
Yeah, and you get the full appreciation from James Williams, Mr. Connectivity, saying,
hello, James.
Calling RCS SMS 2.0 is disrespectful. So
Agree.
Obviously, I wanted that reaction.
And probably as well a little bit too expensive for the business to go to RCS, a little bit expensive for the brands to go to RCS, a little bit expensive for the MNOs to limit it to that. We need to go one step further, and that's where it's very important. And I want to praise really there for my own church, is that in reality that's also our job as aggregators and really players in the middle between the MNOs and the enterprises, in order to explain to the brand that this is not only a rich SMS. It's not only that, it's much more than that.
So John, you mentioned P2A and the ability of having a discovery, a directory of chatbots. which also implies that the chatbot have a name and you can identify it. In SMS, we know a lot about smishing and people misusing the send ID to pretend to be someone they are not, and phishing for login information and similar. Can you talk about how RCS is addressing that topic in terms of chatbot verification and so forth?
Yes, Giovanni, thank you. And as I can think Carlos, Marcos, and Virginie have all talked about, the first thing that has to happen here is we have to have reachability in order to make the channel a valuable channel to the enterprises. The next thing is we have to make it a trusted channel, as the previous speakers or panelists have discussed as well. So, one of the things that we do with respect to smishing that you would have to do for RCS as well is to be able to somehow interrogate those payloads that are there, so that you can detect where you've got RCS spam or fraudulent types of messages being sent. Because keep in mind, from an A2P perspective, right? We register all those bots, we give those bots names. And through MEF and other standards organizations that are out there today, we've coined this term called bot verification. Bot verification is a process where either the MNO or some third party is actually going to go and validate that bot, that enterprise that is promoting a bot and wants to advertise that bot on a OpCo's network, actually has the authority to represent the brands that bot might be utilizing. So somebody's got to go do that, and then once all that's done, then you've got a bot that's been vetted, and you then move to the next phase, which is, okay, is this enterprise reputable enterprise? So you might have scoring that occurs with respect to what kind of enterprise it is. And in the end, through the whole bot verification process, we wind up then determining at the OpCo level, say, Telefonica Wholesale, for example, decides that, okay, this bot is legitimate. We now need to go negotiate the commercial terms with that bot or enterprise so that we can develop the rate card. And we'll talk about that maybe later, perhaps. But in the end, what this is all about is monetization. So the bot gets verified. Now the bot's in service. Now the next level of developing that trusted channel is actually getting to a point where you can do real-time monitoring of traffic on the network, not just A2P traffic, which might be like bot drift. Does the bot move away from the original behavioral brief that was approved by the MNO, right? But we also need to go and monitor the P2P traffic that is occurring, because in SMS world, that's where a lot of the smishing actually winds up occurring. So this is an area that has to be developed. There are companies out there today that provide these sorts of things. Syniverse is certainly active in this spot as well as some of my other colleagues here on the panel. So these are things that have to happen. I would say in the early days of RCS A2P, it's really going to be focused on bot verification, bot drift detection. Those would be things that will enable the user to, when they look at that bot and they see whether or not there's a check mark there for, this bot's been verified. Now we've got a trusted e-commerce channel for A2P. But the other side of that is the smishing equivalent.
It's the famous tick you want to look out for.
Exactly. Right.
And last, more generic question on RCS to you, Carlos. I mean, you're evangelizing the industry, literally, the enterprises, the MNOs. How do you see the market picking up on these evangelization attempts? Do you see a momentum building, or is it still you preaching to the mountain?
Oh, there's definitely a momentum. I've been evangelizing like crazy. In fact, Dario in the MEF event last week, he mentioned that I've become a brand of myself. I've been participating very heavily in all of these GSMA RCS business messaging labs and as many activities as we've been able to evangelize on both sides, not just on the mobile network operators, which in the end are the ones that are going to have to provide this medium to the masses, but also on the brands side of the game, trying to give them the value of what they are going to be able to do with RCS that they couldn't do before, and why RCS is a better candidate to reach their consumers versus other channels like social networks and the like. I think right now the most important evangelization task we're doing is actually in the MNO side, because and particularly now after this ordeal we're dealing with about COVID, a lot of the MNOs have delayed their plans to launch RCS because they were reconsidering, among other priorities. And most of the effort we're doing these days when we're meeting with MNOs to go over RCS is actually helping them with the business case, helping them understand how the traffic is going to go, how the kind of what opportunities they can address with RCS, and then have a kind of a view of what's going to be the revenue they can promote on RCS, and what would be kind of the share of that revenue they could collect. And there is several aspects in there, and many MNOs are still considering, as Virginie said, RCS to be the SMS 2.0, and they just strictly focus on the behavior of the SMS wholesale traffic they're getting today, or the SMS A2P traffic. Many of them are scared that RCS is going to cannibalize that traffic, which, if you've been paying attention to mobile square numbers, that's actually not true. SMS is expected to continue to grow. And some of them are not kind of looking beyond the picture. And that beyond is basically that RCS opens other avenues for revenue, both for the wholesale partners as well as the MNOs. And that is that it taps into two segments that before were not kind of very rich when they were delivered over SMS. One is the customer service vertical, where now with a full conversational channel with full interactivity, rich messages, and the ability to kind of include media in the flow, and provide automations, can open to a lot of companies to kind of take that chat experience they've been doing over the web into RCS, and that's something that our friends, for example, in Liveperson are doing very heavily. And then the other one is actually the front related to advertising, to mobile advertising, which right now is almost 100% based on either web or social networks. But mobile advertising is actually a very big pie of revenue that brands are spending on every single year. And even if RCS is able to capture just 5 or 10% of that pie, it's much, much higher, orders of magnitude higher, than the money they're going to be making by just pure A2P models. So we're doing a lot of activity in there. We're now, obviously, we're focusing a lot on MEF, because it looks like MEF has taken the torch on the evangelization of RCS.
You can tell from all the links which Dario is distributing on the chat.
Of course, they basically stepped up to the task, and they're driving it like crazy with everybody's support behind them, of course. But yes, there is a lot of activity about evangelization in there, and we believe that we're at a turning point. We're actually getting a lot of new carriers. It's been a while, and we have a lot of carriers that are ready to launch, and their technologies in place. I think the kind of friction right now is to come up, because it's an uncharted territory, to come up which are the right kind of charging models or go-to-market models for the solutions.
So let's assume we have the perfect world. Every carrier in this planet has launched RCS. And now let's move to the real topic, which I want to cover in this session. And that is the topic of wholesale of RCS. So where are we really with intercarrier RCS? And I'd like to start first with the P2P side of it. So me RCSing to Virginie, me being in Germany, Virginie being in France, would that work today? And maybe I'm asking Virginie and John, and maybe you can have a dialogue together, since you're actually providing these hubbing services on the SMS side. How does that relate now in RCS world for P2P?
Would you like to kick it off, John?
Sure, Virginie, I can help out here. Yeah, so exactly. I mean, I think the whole opportunity here, or the need that the industry has, is in fact making sure that this P2P intercarrier connectivity occurs, so that we can have that reach from for P2P, and sets that as kind of the foundation upon which you then layer map A2P. But this P2P connectivity from an intercarrier perspective is something Syniverse has been doing for a very long time with our SMS hub, and now we have a RCS P2P hub as well. And so the story is actually quite good there. That P2P hub connectivity in North America is already connecting and is in commercial operation for all the tier 1 carriers, and even some, I'll call them a tier 1 non-GSMA MNO type of a service provider. So that's all up and running. We started.
Is it real, or are we talking a few messages a month?
Well, I was just going to get to that. Okay, so this right now, for like the month of August alone, we've already processed over 15 billion RCS P2P intercarrier messages in the U.S. And
15 billion?
Billion, that's right. And that means that right now we're over 250 million messages a day, and that's intercarrier traffic. That doesn't speak to what's happening inside the carrier, or as I like to call it, intra-carrier. And so we're ready to go. I mean, this is real. This is happening. As I like to also say, and RCS is here. Now we just have to continue to grow it. And I know we've got a lot of activities going on in Europe and in Asia. But this is the first phase, right? Intercarrier P2P's got to happen. And then as each of the individual MNOs deploy A2P, then we are able to then connect the A2P stuff together through a map hub, which is not what you've asked about right now, but that is also something that is happening now. So Virginie, I turn it over to you and see what you'd like to say.
Yeah, no, all of that, I fully agree with all what you've said, John. I would add to this that the economical reality, though, Giovanni, is that for many operators, it is a lot of money spent in order to start implementing RCS. And in reality, the P2P RCS will not bring them any money, because most of the time it's for free. So that's the concrete reality is that we would all like everything to be wonderful, but in a real world, people will have to pay for that. I'm afraid that Carlos doesn't work for a charity company, so people will probably have to pay for that. And the question is, how do they get money out of that in order to be able to pay for that? And this is where it's important, in my personal view, our view at GMS is really that P2P and A2P should come together, because in reality, the entire positioning of RCS and the capability for the MNO to pay for their RCS backend systems will come from the capability that they have to monetize the RBM, which is the A2P RCS. And this is where this is very important when today we talk to the MNOs in order to help them in their RCS enablement or in the RCS hubbing, to also take into account the RBM part. So I think the two of them are fairly interrelated, and that's why John kept on also coming back to this A2P part, because we all believe, all the players in that industry, that this is really coming together. And I've seen on the chat there that there is.
Eamon is asking, what is the commercial model for international P2P RCS between operators? Marcos, maybe something for you to comment as an operator?
I'm fully aligned with John and Virginia. No, I believe that, for example, in our case, the P2P is a very difficult business, because we cannot get money from the final user. No, so we need to align our strategies in the A2P and P2P in order to launch this kind of service. In our case, we are using at the beginning big hubs, no, like Syniverse, Mavenir, in order to resolve all of these problems and reduce our initial investment on CapEx. But in parallel, we are evaluating for the medium or for the long term the possibility to establish bilateral agreements. No, at the end, this service is similar to other roaming service, to other SMS service, and if you are a group and you have good volumes, maybe it makes sense to establish a direct interconnection between two operators. And answering the question of the chat about the P2P, it will be a free of charge model between operators. I believe at the beginning, all of us we are using the MOU, no, and it's a free of charge model. But if we don't have a correct balance between the parties, maybe we need to put, I don't know, some limitations in terms of traffic in order to regulate this part.
Yeah, great.
And if I may as well,
please.
Giovanni, if I may just one other stuff on the hubbing, I think that there is a big nuance between SMS and RCS. Again, if we want to make that parallel, although I know that James is going to kill me for that, but whatever. If we want to make that parallel, SMS existed before hubbing existed, and hubbing was invented after SMS. Although RCS existed after the hubbing concept started. And this is where today, we believe as hubs, and I don't want to talk for John, but I'm sure that John is in agreement with me, that us as hubs do have a gameplay there, which is to really help accelerating this adoption, because the hubbing already exists for SMS. We have already certain relations between multiple partners on SMS, and we have to enable them to be RCS. To be RCS relations, to be RCS peering, could it be on the A2P or on the P2P side, in order to ensure that we accelerate the development and the reach of that of those RCS capabilities.
Precisely, and I just I'll add something to what Virginie's saying, because I know that she knows this as well as Carlos and Marcos. We started the RCS P2P hubbing activity with over 6 MNOs back in 2018, and the reason why it takes a little while to do this stuff, there's a lot more traffic types, as Virginie is pointing out, that you actually have to match and map and convert, because people, different carriers and service providers don't all implement, surprise, surprise, the protocols exactly the same way. So somebody's got to go in there and get the little bit analyzer out and figure out how to get all these things to actually communicate. So we have that experience. We've done that. Anybody in the hubbing business has to do that, but it's not simple. It's complicated, and it takes a lot of horsepower when we're talking about all these different types of messages now compared to SMS.
So I'd still like to nail on the monetary aspect, Carlos. I think you are active. Let's switch from the US to Germany, which is another golden country. Mm-hmm. And I think you're active in that market. What can you say about the P2P RCS agreements between the operators? Is the messages for free, or are there interworking arrangements?
So they definitely have interworking arrangements, and at least for this foreseeable future, they have decided that they're not going to charge each other for the P2P traffic. They understand that they're not going to be making any money from P2P, simply because the users are accustomed to getting rich messaging from the over-the-top players like WhatsApp and the others for free. So nobody's going to be paying to run P2P messages on RCS when they can open WhatsApp and just send a message.
Yeah, that's from an end user perspective, but between carriers?
Between carriers, what they're doing right now, in our particular case in Germany, we're into our main customer is Telefonica O2 in Germany, and we're connecting them through our cloud hub to Vodafone and to Deutsche Telekom. So far, they are not charging each other to transfer traffic. They have some commercial agreements to basically make sure that nobody's abusing that relationship and that connection. But for the moment, at this time, they're not charging each other. I don't know if that's going to continue over the long term, or they're going to kind of stop it and change it at some point. My personal perception is they probably will continue that way, because the monetization strategy for them is to monetize A2P and P2A, and that monetization will subsidize the P2P. In fact, for example, in our particular case with Mavenir, the model that we have with our customers in Europe and many other countries is a revenue share model where we don't kind of charge them for the solution per message or kind of like per capacity, let's say. What we do is we make an agreement with them, we provide the service, we operate it for them from our cloud to enable a go-to-market, fast go-to-market, and then we have an operational agreement where out of the revenue they make from P2A and A2P, we take a percentage, and that way we kind of split the risk between the companies. That's been like that for a while. But in terms of the monetization strategies for the foreseeable future, for P2P, we're not expecting a charge there because let's make this clear for the wholesale audience in here. RCS is not like SMS. RCS was designed to be able to monetize P2A and A2P, not really thinking about monetizing P2P because that ship had already sailed. And the issue here is that with SMS, there is so many mechanisms. SMS was always designed to be a point-to-point protocol, and to when kind of A2P started on SMS, it was basically a gateway into the network, and the destinations were still 2 phone numbers to reach each other. On RCS business messaging, you are not going to allow a brand to just take their phone number and start, sending messages to other subscribers as a P2P model. If you want to be able to address those customers, if you want to be able to enable those chatbots and all of those kind of rich functionality, you cannot do that from a P2P connection. You have to do it from an A2P connection through a map, which means you are going to be able to prevent those kind of unofficial, let's say, A2P or P2A routes, because P2P is always going to be between individual people. And if a brand wants to connect to the network, they have to go through a map, whether it's directly through the map of the carrier, or they want to use what John was mentioning about a kind of like a map hub. The RCS standard allows for those technologies, but the whole model here and the way that we build those business cases for our customers is always do not charge for P2P, and the money is going to come from the business interactions. And then the other thing that probably we're also going to be helping to push the change in there is that right now, simply because humans are I call them animals of kind of customs. We are used to charging in a certain model on SMS, which is normally both either on kind of individual messages or in bulk with discounts. And a lot of carriers are going to be migrating those models to RCS. Most of them are initially considering a price per message, some of them with a little bit of premium because it's a richer message. And then there is a new concept introduced that's called a session, which is a period of time, and it depends between carriers, but could range between a few hours or 24 hours, where there is a maximum number of messages you can exchange with the user, and it's considered a session, and you pay a fixed price. But eventually, as I mentioned before, whether we're opening that customer service and that mobile advertising opportunity, I think the market needs to go to more of a value-based pricing, where you can reach agreements with the companies to kind of charging not based on the messages, but based on the outcome they expect. And that's something that happens today with a kind of mobile advertising. When you pay for ads online, you don't just pay for the ads that are displayed. You actually pay more if people interact with the ad and click. The way that works is that companies kind of charge very, very little for just impressions, just to show the ad in front of you, but they charge more on people who click because they see there is value in there. We expect on RCS that to be the same. We expect to be able to open pricing based on click-throughs, pricing based on, for example, a kind of finalized sales. It's not the same for a company. It may be very expensive to think, oh, I'm going to have to pay for 1 million messages and I may not get a return. And then also based on the price of the service you're selling, it's not crazy to think that maybe a company that sells cars is going to be willing to pay maybe $50 if they actually convert one of those messages into a sale, because, or maybe even more, because for them on a sale of maybe $10,000, $20,000 on a car, $50 is nothing, but the value they get from getting that lead is significant. So those are all the things that the industry.
You've been evangelizing,
yeah.
and This is the brave new world of RCS indeed, with lots of new business models. I think we have a few questions which are trying to tie it down to what is really happening. So Michal from Polkomtel asks, how many active subscribers are there in the US? Maybe John, you mentioned how many messages you're seeing on RCS. How many RCS active subscribers do you know are in the US?
Yeah, there's about 45 million active RCS subscribers currently in the US as we see it today, and that's growing as we get more and more carriers interconnected. So it's a good number.
Yeah. So we definitely now need to shift the last gear, and that is RBM. I try to keep and tame you to P2P, RCS, interworking, and intercarrier hubbing, but the real money lies in RBM and RCS business messaging, be it A2P or P2A. So let's add this topic. For the audience, there's still a poll going on. Just look it up on the right in session Q&A, and then under the poll tab, please participate. And I think it's also time to add the two additional faces to this panel. So if the moderation can switch them on. In the meantime, RBM, what do you see in terms of intercarrier RBM models being played out? Virginie or John?
So at first on RBM, I would like to come back a little bit on what we've discussed before, and what Carlos mentioned also, and what I think was also mentioned in the chat there. The risk of cannibalization of SMS and potentially RCS by WhatsApp, Facebook, and the others. That's competition, and competition is always bringing something better and improved. And clearly, all those channels will have to live together, facing each other, but as additional means in order to reach the end users, with with pros and cons for each of those channels, really, plus and minus for each of them. But I think it's important to see that. That's the first thing. Then I think, as we said before with John and Carlos as well, is the peering is important in that ecosystem. It's already important on the SMS hubbing. So could it be for the P2P SMS, where you have the peering between multiple parties for exchanging P2P, but also on A2P, because none of us do have a full coverage, a full direct quality coverage to all the MNOs. And that's also what's going to happen on RCS.
Yeah,
on the RBM side or on the...
I would agree. Were you going to say something, Giovanni?
Yeah, just wanted to introduce Eddie and Brien. If you could just say a few words on you guys. Eddie, maybe starting.
Oh, hi. I'm Eddie DeCurtis. A lot of you guys, I don't know how many people are on, but many of you know me. Currently, I'm the Vice President of Strategic Accounts over at Liveperson, founding member of the GSMA Leadership Committee on RCS. I've been involved in RCS when it first started, then I went away from it when it failed miserably, and came back 4 years later to help the GSMA on the rollout of RCS from a business messaging standpoint. Been in the messenger business since 1999. Did it all. So
another real expert. And Brien?
Yeah, thank you so much, Giovanni. Brien Jones-Lantzy here with Infobip. I'm the head of telecommunications for the North American market. My resume is much like Eddie. He and I started a couple months apart in '99. Very active with the GSM Association, the Mobile Marketing Association, CTIA, and just really happy to be on this panel so that we can talk about the RCS MOU, which we have crafted with myself and Eddie have crafted with the GSM Association, and we'll get into that in a moment.
Right, exactly. So there's a reason you two are coming as a pair. and this is this new MOU. There will be a link shared on the chat. But what is this MOU? What is the goal of that MOU, and what is written in this MOU?
Yeah, the MOU itself is a document that states that those that are signing it, those companies that are signing it, and many have already, and ultimately we'd like everyone in the ecosystem to be part of the Memorandum of Understanding. And basically what it states is that we as an organization, we will work to not repeat the errors of SMS when it first rolled out, the lack of interoperability. We will not try to undermine the smaller operators, the smaller brands as they try and roll this out as a solution set into the marketplace. And then we will work together collectively so that we can assure the best platform as well as the best consumer experience. Because ultimately that's who wins, it's the consumers. We need the subscribers to adopt this RCS platform solution, much like subscribers adopted SMS way back in the day. And only through that and making it easy to for its adoption in the marketplace, to roll out in the marketplace, making sure that, as all these panelists has talked about today, making sure that there are guide rails around what can and can't be done so that we do not have any sort of spamming or smishing that happens throughout the platform. So really, Eddie and I at the last GSM leadership meeting got together and said, we really need a document that everyone's going to sign, that everyone agrees to this as an overriding tenet. So as Giovanni had mentioned, in the link for this event, you and your company can download the document, work with the MEF, and you yourselves can sign this and be part of this revolutionary piece. Eddie, maybe some color and clarity?
Yeah.
And who do you want to sign? The MNOs only, or?
Everybody.
Everybody?
Everybody.
And there's one special enterprise who's very active on RCS. Do you want that?
Everybody.
To sign?
Everybody. Because what this document lays out is real simple. Here's the playing field. Everybody adhere to it, right? We want an out-of-the-box experience. We want P2P open and open and clear. We want interconnect open and easy. Because the carriers don't need, let's be honest, the carriers don't need us. They need us to bring brands because they don't do that very well. But they really don't, because they'll interconnect through the IPX network and they'll be done with it. They don't need us. They really don't, right? So if we continue to make this business difficult, just like with SMS, they will go and do direct. They don't. So we literally have to make it easy, right? We have to make it easy, painless, no fighting between everybody, no one company owning the entire market. And and we're seeing it now. There's actually a question in the chat.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that.
Miguel talking about Google not allowing interconnect. That needs to. That's just if you're a party or signatory to this MOU, that behavior is not allowed. If you're it's you want an out of the box experience, right? So I buy a phone, regardless the phone type, Samsung, Google, Android messaging, or whatever, and I take my SIM card and I stick it in the phone, and it works. My RCS works, just like SMS and MMS works. We had the painful experience of SMS, right? I'm sorry, of MMS, right? When MMS first rolled out, it just was problems all over. They fixed that problem. So we need to have the out-of-the-box experience. We need, the days of CDMA, GSM, TDMA, those days are over. It's LTE, 5G, you're done. Everybody's going to roll it eventually. So RCS is the messaging standard for 5G, right? So, okay, so now, again, this is the behavior we want everybody to adhere to. And that behavior is an open ecosystem, open, competitive. I'm not saying, open and competitive. There are some very, very small, unique companies out there that have some very, very good solutions that will benefit the consumers and benefit the market. Let's give them a place at the table. There are very big companies the same way, but we just need to have a clear understanding of the behaviors as grown-ups and for the industry to support the carriers, to support the and most importantly the consumers, and to bridge the gap between the brands and the consumers via chatbots, via discovery, P to A to P, and P to P, right? So we want the interconnect to be open. We want the on both sides, right? And not have these bottlenecks and these roadblocks put up, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a group of carriers are just going to get frustrated, because company A won't play with nice with company B, and company C has some really cool stuff, and we can't have that. It has to be an open ecosystem.
Sounds like a great initiative to me, and spot on, because again, without interconnections between networks, the whole RCS.
But it's not just interconnect. It's not just interconnect. It's everything from an out of the box experience to opening up a developer community, right? Look at that, having a developer community that can contribute to new features, new services, new exciting stuff that's coming out. That it's not stuck to a handful of people sitting in a room going, this is going to be UP 2.5 or UP 3. This is going to be able to open up a developer community to say, hey, we have some great IR, or VR technology that we would love to implement into the ecosystem. So having a developer community, having guidelines around P2P, having guidelines around A to P and bots and brand verification, etc. Once we all agree, and I think the MOU states this is what the industry has agreed upon, and we have signatories, it may eliminate some of the bad behavior, because it may be there's people out there that are doing things that are not copacetic, and Virginie catches it and she says, Eddie, have you seen this? Or John, have you seen this? Or Carlos, have you seen this? And we can start looking at some of this bad behavior and say, hey, this is not right. And I'm a firm believer on punishment being severe and swift, and stop it before it's a detriment to the industry.
Super. So I'd like to hear some comments from the other participants. Carlos, I think Mavenir has also signed this MOU. So you reviewed it, and you're behind that?
We almost didn't make it to the initial signatories that were announced last week, because we kind of went to the last minute with getting our legal team signing the papers. But yes, we're one of the initial signatories. And for us, the important point in here is what Eddie mentioned, is to make RCS an out-of-the-box experience. So when the user gets a new phone, puts a SIM card inside and turns it on, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to download any apps. It just turns on, and their default messaging app that's on that phone connects to the carrier network, whether it's provided by themselves or it's provided by a third party from the cloud. It just turns on, is activated, and now they can discover the brands, and they can start interacting with not just their friends and family over P2P, but with that catalog of brands, whichever kind of discovery mechanism they decide to implement. And there are multiple. I mean, one is the bot discovery mechanism within the app itself, the bot directory, but there's also ways that you can kind of scan a QR code from a billboard or from a pamphlet, or just click on a deep link from a website. But at least enable that experience from the very beginning. I think it is important, not just because of, let's say, the politics or those kind of activities, but also because on the history of RCS, there's been multiple standards and multiple implementations. And there are still some people that are in some of the older implementations. I'm not going to overwhelm the audience with like the different acronyms and stuff, but there is multiple ways to do things. The OpenRCS memorandum of understanding, what it says is, okay, this is going to be the baseline, and we're going to be committed to implementing the standards as they come out to make sure we're always on the latest universal profile, because it doesn't matter, for example, in the case of Mavenir, our map and our RCS core is universal profile 2.4 compliant right now. But if the client is universal profile 2.0, there is several aspects of the experience that the user is not going to be able to use, such as, for example, the bot discovery, because that was introduced, the bot director was introduced in 2.2. So those kind of things, we need to all come to an agreement so that the device manufacturers catch up, the core network providers kind of agree on a certain set of rules, and we all play with the same rules to kind of make the game exciting for the consumers, which in the end are the ones that are going to be using it.
And let me throw in a last question from the audience. Michelle from Bix. Hub is the answer, but what is your view on how can wholesalers best catch up on Google RCS reach? Maybe something from Virginie.
I think she's on mute.
Yeah. No.
You cut off a little bit, Giovanni. Can you repeat that?
So the question from Michelle is, Hub is the answer, which I'm sure you and John agree. But what is your view on how can wholesalers best catch up on Google RCS and its reach?
Reach is clearly key.
You need to catch up.
Yeah, reach is really key. But I think I would say that it's very important for all the various actors in that industry, including all those people in that call, really, to peer with each other, to work with each other. And if we make it happen, I think this problem will be overseen fairly easily, because I think that the MNOs are also on our side because they want it simple and smooth. I think that I would agree on everything that Eddie did, except one thing is that this is where we are needed in order to also manage this interconnection between multiple complex things. And this is what is our role as well. And I think that John would not agree.
We can debate that. We can debate that if the carriers
but there will
really
never
need
be.
us.
Yeah, but there will never be any worldwide normalization. It will never happen.
Well,
From
we talked about this.
Perspective, from
We have a carrier.
it cannot
Marcos is a
happen.
carrier.
We talked about this,
You
and in
need
fact,
hubs.
it's interesting because as we talked about this before, the whole protocol difference and everybody needing a hub and so forth. Well, that non-MNO service provider that I spoke of earlier is in fact who we're talking about here.
Oh no, and you're right, John.
And,
You're 100% right.
And Syniverse has already got the connections into them for a P2P hubbing perspective. So I think it's beginning. We're solving a big piece of the problem.
If the carrier has an IPX and they have an IPX connection, they do not need a hub. Because RCS is a data message that goes over the IPX channel to the IMS core that sits within the.
And Eddie, that's all well and good, but you're not getting the conversion and the communication to occur.
Exactly, and this is exactly when people were telling me, "Oh, there is SS7, so SMS will work everywhere."
Yeah.
That's just not happening.
It's not true.
That was just wrong, and that's going to be wrong for this one as well. Exactly, and the contractual one. And multiple data privacy issues and all of that, and the reporting, and you're missing plenty of things.
From a technical standpoint, technically, all right, we can get into this from a technical aspect. It's a data message. Now there is legal issues. There's this. There's that. There's other things.
There's communication. That's
and you're right. You're right.
And so that's what the hub is doing. The hub is actually making those translations between the way that one person represents a one-to-one chat, a group chat, a file transfer. All of that stuff is not something you just pass along and the other guy gets. The other guy's got to read it and then be able to display it, right? So we map all those things.
Exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Well, I think we see that there's a lot of things happening, and I'd like, unfortunately, we're at the end of the hour, but I'd like to close with the results of the poll. And the question was, are you confident that RCS will become a significant wholesale service? And a majority has clearly said yes. 52% are convinced, 24% maybe. So if you're lucky, we can add them up and have a wide majority is saying yes, and only 24% are saying no. So with that positive outlook, I'd like to thank all the experts on the panel, including Eddie and Brien, who just came in. Kind of
Sign the MOU.
But scored an MOU goal.
Sign the MOU. There was a lot of work put into that.
Yeah. So thank you all, and have fun with the next sessions coming up. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.